have the Picts' own name for themselves. We don't know what their own ethnic name was called. In terms of what their neighbours called them, to the south, people speaking Welsh called them Prydain. Prydain meant the Picts or Pictland, and that's the same word that's given us Britain. So as far as the people to the south were concerned, they were a kind of Britain, a northern Britain. And the people in Ireland called them Cruithne or Cruni, and that goes back to the same root meaning Britain. People writing in Latin called them Picti, which means painted people.
So she was saying they are known as the painted people. That's melanation. We're going to get into some of these exoteric stories that they use. The giant Moor of St. Michael's Mount. The people of Cornwall told a story about a great figure named Cormoran. Some called him the Moor-Giant, a remnant of an older race, the first people of the island, the ones whose memory survived only in whispers. They said Cormoran stood taller than the pines, dark as the storm clouds that roll in from the Atlantic. Atlantis. His footprint were said to be so deep that water filled them like small ponds, and it was he who shaped St. Michael's Mount. And that's a Moran, the giant Moor, Cormoran, carrying stones from the mainland upon his own shoulders, each one larger than a man. Cormoran lived in a cavern high on the mount, where the serpents of the old land were said to coil around the rocks. The ancient folk believed he was not merely a brute force, but a guardian of powerful knowledge. Knowledge carried by the sea peoples, and that's Moors anyway, the sea or mooring, navigating the seas, the seven seas. The Moorish navigators who were remembered, the ones who carried the dragon serpent symbols. Old Cornish storytellers said the smaller folk of the mount, the ones later called Pixies, were descendants of those first people. They remembered the old ways, the old songs, the old lines of power that ran like serpents underneath the island. They called one of these paths the serpent line. It was said that only the ancient ones could see it, glowing faintly across the stones at dawn. At dawn. What comes at dawn? But when St. Michael came, the story changed. The mount shifted from the hands of the ancient Moor-Giant into the hands of the new faith. St. Michael confronted Cormoran upon the heights, the sunlight flashing like a sword across the water. The great battle between the quote-unquote angel and the Moor-Giant became the tale every child knew, though few remembered its deeper meaning, the coming of a new order, the removal of the old serpent wisdom, the silencing of the ancient Moorish presence. Yet the Pixies did not disappear. They withdrew into the cracks of the land, into the stone, the fog, and the places where the wind still carried the voice of the old world. And it is there that the next story begins. The Pixie with the red cap. Cornwall, adapted from the earliest surviving variants. In the remote Cornish village near the wooded edge of the downs, the old people spoke of a strange little figure who wandered the moors at dusk. His name was not known, but he was recognized by one unmistakable thing, a bright red cap glowing like embers in the twilight. Some said he was of the ancient ones of the Moorish folk who remained after the old giants vanished. Others said he was a guardian set to keep the memory of the first people alive. This red-cap pixie was not cruel, but he tested those who walked alone at night. If a traveler carried pride or malice, the pixie would lead them in circles for hours, deeper into the bog, until the moon was high and fear gripped their hearts. But if the traveler walked with humility, the pixie would appear at their side, silently pointing out the right path home. Children loved him, for he played tricks only to teach lessons. He would hide small items, tie knots in hair, or make a pot boil over. But if the household treated him with respect, he returned the favor. One winter evening, a farmer mocked the old ways and declared that no pixie had ever lived in Cornwall. That night his cows wandered from their pen, his tools vanished, and strange lights danced across the moor. The villagers understood. The red-cap pixie was reminding them of what they had forgotten. But the most important moment came when a young girl lost after sunset began to cry among the standing stones. Out from behind a granite pillar stepped the small figure, one with the glowing cap. He bowed, placed his tiny hand upon hers, and led her back to her village. When the adults arrived to meet her, the pixies stepped back into the shadows, but they noticed something remarkable. The stones upon the path faintly glowed, as if a serpent of light had passed over them. The elders whispered, "The old lines still remember. The old people still walk. Not all has been lost." Christian victory over the giant encodes the replacement of the old Moorish order with a newer religious system. Thus, both stories, Cormoran and the Red-Cap Pixie, are two sides of the same hidden story. The rise, the fall, survival, and concealment of the ancient Moorish presence in the British Isles, or what they call the British, but it's the Pixland. We have already did the previous demonstrations of St. Patrick chaining the serpent at Lake Delvine, as far as the boar's head celebration, symbolizing the Moor's head, as well as the three-leaf clover, symbolizing Kenneth the Christian Moor can slice 3 heads of the Moors. Therefore, it was put upon the Morrison family crest, celebrating the cutting off of 3 Moors' heads. Some of them honor the Moors. 1 head is honoring the Moors. 3 heads is honoring the decapitation of the Moors' heads. And Bruce having his heart taken to Jerusalem in a small casket. And on the way there, the carrier ends up helping in fighting the Moors. All of this is exoteric stories of the Moors.